The silver palace of Zirath floated high above the clouds, glowing under the twin suns. Every wall sparkled like glass. Every hallway hummed with strange alien light. Servants of all species moved quickly, careful not to make a sound, because in the center of this shining world, there lived the one person no one dared to displease, Queen Seraphina of Zirath. Her word was law. Her look could freeze the bravest soldier. And yet, for all her power, the queen had one problem that even her armies couldn't solve. Her baby. A small, fragile creature unlike any other royal child born before. Half Zirathian, half something else. Something weaker, softer. The little princess named Lyra was born too early. Her tiny lungs struggled to breathe the thick Zirathian air. She cried often, her voice echoing painfully through the palace chambers. 15 nannies had tried. 15 had failed. The last one was fired that morning, carried out in tears as the queen's voice thundered through the halls. I want her cared for. Not experimented on, not frightened, not dropped into another machine. She shouted, her crystal crown glowing with rage. If another one fails me, I'll... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Everyone in the palace knew what I'll meant. Outside, far away from the royal chambers, a human janitor named Ethan mopped the marble floor in silence. He was tall, tired-looking, with lines under his eyes that told stories of sleepless nights. Once he had been an engineer on a transport ship. Now he swept floors for aliens who barely noticed he existed. He wasn't supposed to be on Zirath. Humans weren't allowed here, except as low-class workers. But Ethan had begged for the job, not for himself. For his daughter. Her name was Mia, just 8 years old and the only thing keeping him alive after losing his wife in a mining accident. He sent every coin he earned back to the colony where she stayed with friends. Every night when the lights dimmed in the palace, he whispered to himself, just a few more months, Mia, then I'll come home. That morning, as he mopped outside the nursery wing, a sharp, painful cry pierced the air. It was different, weaker, but full of fear. He froze, then the crying grew louder. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't allowed near the royal wing. One step out of line could mean prison. But something about that cry, it reminded him of the nights Mia had been sick, gasping for air on the cold floor of their shelter. The sound of a child struggling, it was universal. Before he realized what he was doing, Ethan dropped his mop and followed the sound. The golden doors of the royal nursery stood slightly open. Inside, chaos. The new nanny, some glowing insectoid alien, was trying to calm baby Lyra, but the infant's breathing was shallow. She kicked, flailed, gasping for air. Get away from her, shouted a voice. Queen Seraphina stormed in, her robe flowing like liquid metal, her eyes bright like fire fixed on the scene. But Ethan saw something else, the baby's tiny chest barely rising. He didn't think. He ran forward, the guards moved, but too late. Ethan reached the crib, lifted the baby and gently tilted her upright. With his other hand, he tapped a rhythm on her back, soft, slow, patient. The same rhythm he used when Mia had trouble breathing. 1 second, 2, then a small cough, then another, and then a breath. Weak but steady, the baby stopped crying. Her little eyes blinked, confused but calm. The room went silent. Even the queen froze. Ethan didn't look up. He just whispered softly, "You're okay now, little one. You're okay." When he finally turned, the queen's guards surrounded him, weapons raised. "Who are you?" the queen demanded, her voice low and dangerous. Ethan swallowed hard. I clean floors, Your Majesty." "I didn't mean..." "You touched the air," she said, stepping closer. "Do you know what that means for your kind?" He nodded. He knew. Death. But he didn't care. "She couldn't breathe," he said simply. "I just helped her." For a moment, Queen Seraphina said nothing. Her gaze shifted to her daughter, now sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. Her sharp eyes softened, just a little. "Guards," she said at last, "take him to the holding chamber. I will decide his fate later." As the guards dragged Ethan away, he caught one last glimpse of the baby, tiny fingers clutching the air where he had been. He smiled weakly. At least she's breathing. But what Ethan didn't know, what no one knew, was that this single act of kindness had just changed the future of two worlds forever. The metal doors of the holding chamber closed with a heavy thud. The sound echoed like thunder inside the cold underground room. Ethan sat on the floor, his hands bound by glowing silver cuffs. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of rust and fear. He didn't know if it was day or night. Time didn't move down there, only his thoughts did. He kept thinking about the baby, the tiny alien princess who had almost stopped breathing. Was she okay now? Did I really help her? He wondered. He wasn't afraid of dying. He had seen too much pain to fear it, but the thought of Mia, his little girl waiting for him, that hurt more than anything. If I die here, she'll be alone. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. The door slid open with a hiss. 2 tall guards entered, their armor shining blue in the dim light. Behind them came Queen Seraphina. She looked different now. Not the fiery ruler who had shouted at her servants, but calm, cold, like someone hiding a storm inside. "Leave us," she said. The guards bowed and stepped out, the door sealing behind them. For a long moment, there was silence. The queen just stood there staring at Ethan. Her eyes, golden and bright, unstudied him like a strange creature in a cage. "You are human," she finally said. Her voice echoed softly through the chamber. "Yes, Your Majesty," Ethan replied quietly. "You know the law," she continued. "No human is allowed near the royal bloodline. Touching the heir is punishable by death." Ethan nodded. "I know. Then why did you do it?" she asked. Her tone wasn't angry now. It was curious, almost gentle but dangerous underneath. Ethan took a slow breath. "Because she couldn't breathe. Because no one was helping her. You risked your life for a child that isn't even your species," she said. He met her eyes. "A child is a child. Breathing, crying, scared. It doesn't matter what species they are." Something flickered across her face. A memory perhaps, or pain, but she quickly hid it. "You think you're brave," she said sharply, "but you are foolish." She turned, walking slowly around the room. "Do you know how many trained caretakers failed her? How many machines I built, how many doctors I paid? 15 nannies in 2 months, 15 failures. And yet somehow a janitor succeeds." She stopped and looked at him. "That makes me question everything." Ethan lowered his head. "Maybe they tried too hard. Maybe they forgot she's just a baby." The queen stared at him for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice colder. "You humans are strange, always pretending to care about things that are not yours. But your care costs too much." She walked toward the door. Ethan's heart sank. This is it, he thought. She's going to have me executed, but then... She paused. Her fingers hovered over the control panel. Without turning, she said, "The child slept peacefully for the first time last night. The royal doctor says her breathing is normal." Ethan looked up. "That's good. Don't speak," she snapped quickly. But her voice trembled slightly, just for a second. Then she turned her head just enough for him to see her eyes. "You will not be executed." Ethan blinked, shocked. "Instead," she said slowly, "you will work under my supervision. You will not leave the palace grounds. You will not tell anyone of your contact with the royal child. You will follow every rule I give." He frowned. "What am I supposed to do?" The queen stepped closer, her face unreadable. "You are to continue what you started. You will take care of the princess. Until I say otherwise." Ethan stared at her, speechless. "You want me to be her caretaker?" "I want my daughter alive," she replied sharply. "And if that means trusting a human, then so be it." Before he could answer, the guards returned and unlocked his cuffs. "You will be watched," the queen said firmly. "If you make one mistake, I will end you myself." Ethan nodded quietly. Understood. As he followed the guards out, he noticed the queen's hand trembling slightly by her side. She hid it quickly, but he saw it. That flicker of fear and something else. Something human. Moments later, he was led back to the nursery. The door opened. The room was silent, filled with a soft blue glow. The baby lay in her cradle, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. When she sensed him, her tiny hand moved, reaching out into the air. Ethan felt something inside him melt. Carefully, he stepped closer and whispered, "Hey there, little one. Looks like we're both in trouble now." The baby blinked. tall crystal windows, painting the marble floors in silver. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan sat in the nursery, half awake, his head resting against the side of the baby's cradle. The soft hum of machines surrounded him like a lullaby. Little Princess Lyra slept peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling with steady rhythm. For the first time since he arrived, Ethan allowed himself to relax. He looked at her, smiled, and whispered, "You're a strong one. Stronger than me." But deep inside the walls, hidden circuits began to flicker red. Something had been activated. In another part of the palace, Commander Varric was making his rounds when he noticed the same red flicker on the hallway monitors. He frowned. "That's the nursery feed," he muttered. "Why is it locked?" He tapped the screen, but it didn't respond. Then the alarm system blinked once and went dark. "Impossible," Varric said under his breath. "Someone's overridden royal security." He reached for his communicator. "Queen Serafina, there's been a breach." "In the nursery?" The Queen's voice came through instantly, calm but dangerous. "Protect my daughter now." Inside the nursery, the hum of machines changed tone. A soft hiss filled the air. Ethan's eyes opened. Something smelled strange, metallic, burning. He stood up quickly. The air purification system. It wasn't cleaning. It was releasing something. He rushed to the control panel, pressing buttons, but alien text flashed back. "Override locked." Then he saw it. A faint green mist leaking from the vents. Lyra coughed weakly in her sleep. "No, no, no," Ethan shouted. He ran to her cradle and scooped her up, covering her with his jacket. He could feel her trembling. Her tiny lungs couldn't handle this. He wrapped a cloth around his face and shouted at the ceiling, "Help! Someone shut this off." No one answered. The mist grew thicker. His vision blurred. His lungs burned. He stumbled toward the door, but it didn't open. "Come on." He slammed his hand against the panel, but it stayed red. Locked. Ethan coughed hard, almost falling. He looked down at the baby in his arms. Her skin was turning pale silver blue. She needed air. Then through the blur he saw something. A small vent near the floor leading into the maintenance tunnel. He had cleaned that passage before. It wasn't made for people, but it was the only way out. He dropped to his knees, yanked the cover open and crawled inside, holding Lyra close to his chest. Behind him, the mist filled the nursery completely. The machines sparked and hissed, melting under their own heat. Ethan crawled through the narrow tunnel, his heart pounding, every breath painful. "Hold on, little one." "Just hold on," he whispered. He didn't know that cameras in the palace had been shut off. He didn't know that someone was watching from the shadows, someone who had planned this all along. Meanwhile, Queen Serafina stormed into the control room. "What happened?" she demanded. An engineer bowed nervously. "Someone inside the palace network activated a purge protocol, Majesty. It targeted the nursery air system." Her golden eyes widened. "That's an assassination code. Who authorized it?" "We don't know," the engineer stammered. The signal came from inside the palace council chamber. "The council," she whispered, her anger rising like a wave. Ethan crawled out of the tunnel at last, falling onto the cold marble floor of an empty corridor. He gasped for air, pulling the cloth from his face. The baby coughed again, weak but alive. He tore off his jacket, waved it in the air to clear the mist from around her. "You're okay. You're okay," he said, his voice shaking. Footsteps thundered behind him. "Guards, drop the child," a voice shouted. Ethan turned. Commander Varric and 2 soldiers aimed their weapons at him. "She's choking," Ethan yelled. "You have to help her." Varric hesitated, then saw the color of the princess's skin. Without another word, he shouted, "Medic, now!" The guards rushed forward. One of them pulled a small mask from his belt, placing it over the baby's face. The little one took a breath, then another. Her color returned slowly. Ethan slumped to the floor in relief. Queen Serafina arrived moments later, her robe flowing behind her like liquid gold. She saw Ethan holding her child, and for a moment her heart stopped. "What happened?" she demanded. Varric bowed. "Someone triggered a purge in the nursery, Your Majesty." "The human saved her." The Queen froze. Her eyes went from Varric to Ethan, exhausted, coughing, but still holding her daughter protectively. "Take the princess," she whispered. Ethan hesitated, looking at her. "She's okay now," he said softly. Serafina took the baby gently in her arms, her voice breaking as she whispered, "My little Lyra." Then she looked up at Ethan. "You risked your life again. Twice now?" He smiled weakly. "Guess it's just what dads do." Her expression changed, soft for a moment, then cold again. "You will tell me everything you saw. Every detail." "Yes, Your Majesty." She turned to Varric. "Find the traitor who did this. No one rests until I have a name." As the guards escorted Ethan away for questioning, the Queen looked down at her daughter. The baby slept peacefully again, unaware that the night had tried to take her life, and Serafina whispered to herself, "Whoever dares harm her will pay with their blood." The morning after the attack, the shining palace of Zirath looked peaceful again. But peace was a lie. Inside its glowing walls, fear moved like a shadow. Guards whispered. Doors locked faster. The Queen spoke less, and the human, Ethan, became the center of every rumor. Some said he had caused the attack. Some said he was the Queen's secret experiment. But the truth was simpler. He had saved the princess. Twice. Still, Ethan knew better than to feel safe. He sat quietly in a small room beside the nursery, staring at the floor. His uniform was stained with smoke, his hands trembling slightly. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that green gas filling the room, the baby's weak body in his arms. He whispered to himself, "You're lucky, kid." "You're lucky." The door slid open. Commander Varric entered, his armor shining like always. His face was unreadable. "The Queen wishes to see you," he said. Ethan stood up slowly. "I figured that was coming." As he walked through the silent hallways, he noticed something odd. The guards avoided his eyes. Servants turned away when he passed. It felt like he was walking through an invisible storm. When the door to the throne chamber opened, the air felt heavier. Queen Serafina sat on her crystal throne, her golden eyes glowing faintly. The baby slept beside her in a floating cradle. "Come forward," she said quietly. Ethan stepped closer, bowing slightly. "You saved my child again," she said. "Twice now a human has done what my best scientists could not." He didn't know how to respond. "I just did what anyone would have done." "No," she said sharply. "Not anyone. On this planet, no one risks their life for a child that isn't theirs." She stood slowly, her long silver robe whispering against the floor. "You have earned my respect, human. But that doesn't mean I trust you." Ethan nodded. "I understand." The Queen stared at him for a long moment. "You said you heard something before the gas started? A noise?" "Yeah," he said. The machines changed tone, like someone was controlling them from outside. She frowned. "Then it was someone inside my council." "Your own people?" Ethan asked, surprised. Serafina's expression hardened. "Power makes enemies, human, especially when they think their queen is weak." Her voice trembled slightly at that last word. Ethan hesitated, then said softly, "You're not weak. You're a mother. There's a difference." For a second, silence. Then the Queen turned away. "You speak too freely." "I'm sorry," Ethan said quickly. "No," she said after a moment. "Don't be. Perhaps that's why my daughter breathes today." She motioned to Varric. "Take him to the lower archives. I want him to see what he's protecting." The lower archives of the palace were nothing like the bright halls above. They were dark, filled with humming data crystals and floating holograms of old battles and secret experiments. "This place records everything," Varric said as they walked. "Every law, every betrayal, every death," creepy Ethan muttered. They stopped at a sealed door. Varric pressed his hand against it and the lock glowed open. Inside was a small chamber, one Ethan had never seen before. On the wall, strange symbols glowed. In the center, a large tube filled with glowing blue light. Ethan frowned. "What is that?" Varric hesitated. The truth about the princess. The tube flickered, revealing a holographic recording. The Queen appeared, younger, tired, standing beside alien scientists. A faint image of a baby floated inside the blue chamber. "She was born weak," the recording of the Queen said. "Our lungs cannot form fully outside Zirath's high atmosphere. She will not survive unless we find another way." A scientist replied, "There's a human compound found in their DNA. It can adapt to almost any air pressure. If we merge..." The image glitched. Ethan stepped closer, shocked. "You mean she's part human?" Varric looked at him coldly. "Yes, The princess carries your species' breath. Half of her life depends on human genes. Ethan's mind spun. That's why she could breathe when I held her. My air helped her lungs adapt. Varric nodded slowly. The council doesn't know. If they find out, they'll call her impure and destroy her. Ethan's heart pounded. That's why someone tried to kill her. They know. Varric said nothing. His silence was the answer. Later that night, Ethan stood by the nursery window watching the twin moons rise. He looked at the baby, half alien, half human, sleeping peacefully. He whispered softly, "You're a bridge between worlds, little one. But if they find out, they'll tear you apart." Behind him, the queen entered quietly. "You know now," she said. Ethan turned, startled. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it's forbidden," she said, her voice calm but heavy. "If the council learns she carries human blood, they'll destroy her. And me." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we don't let them find out." The queen looked at him, a human janitor standing in front of a throne. And for the first time, she smiled faintly. "Then we protect her. Together." Outside, thunder rolled through the alien sky, a warning that peace was ending. And beneath that sky, two beings from different worlds made a silent promise to keep a child alive, no matter the cost. The council chamber of Zirath was a vast circle of silver and light. The 12 members of the High Council sat on floating thrones, their faces hidden behind veils of crystal. Only their eyes glowed, cold and watching. At the center stood Queen Seraphina, tall and calm, her crown dim under the pale glow of the room. The air trembled with tension. One of the counselors leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Your Majesty, we've reviewed the security footage of the nursery attack. And we have questions about your human." A low murmur spread through the chamber. Another counselor hissed, "A janitor handling royal blood? Disgusting. The people will not accept this." Seraphina's golden eyes flashed. "That human saved my daughter twice when your machines and your experts failed." "The point," said another, a tall reptilian figure, "is that he should never have been near her in the first place. This disobedience endangers the royal line and the throne." The queen's voice turned icy. "Are you questioning my right to decide who protects my child?" The room fell silent. Then the oldest counselor spoke, slow and deliberate. "Majesty, we all wish for the princess's health, but rumors have begun, rumors that the child is not fully Zyrathian." Every muscle in the queen's body went still. "Rumors," she said softly, "can be killed." The counselor smiled faintly. "Not when they are true." Gasps echoed across the chamber. Seraphina's hands tightened at her sides. "Careful," she warned. The old alien continued. "We know, my queen, we've seen the genetic scans. The child carries human markers. Tell me, why would our queen allow such impurity in the royal bloodline?" The queen's heart pounded. She had buried that secret deep, hidden from everyone except Ethan and Varric. If the council truly had the data, there was only one way they could have gotten it. A betrayal. Her voice trembled with fury. "Who leaked this information?" The old counselor tilted his head. "Does it matter? The people deserve a pure heir. You have broken the sacred law." The queen stepped forward, her voice thundering. "That child is my daughter. She will rule Zirath one day, and I will burn this council to ashes before I let anyone harm her." The chamber shook with her words. The counselors flinched, but behind their glass thrones, secret smiles formed, because they had already made their move. That night, while the queen met with her security team, a silent ship slipped away from the palace, carrying one small data crystal. It contained the forbidden truth, the royal princess's half-human DNA. The crystal was on its way to the Zyrathian public network. If it reached there, the entire planet would know the royal blood was tainted. In the nursery, Ethan sat beside the cradle, unaware of the storm about to break. The baby slept quietly, her small hand gripping his finger. He smiled faintly. "You sleep like Mia," he whispered. Same little snore. He had begun to love her, not just as a child he protected, but as someone who reminded him of his own daughter. Then, the door slid open. Commander Varric stepped in, his face tight. "Ethan, you need to come with me." Ethan frowned. "What's wrong?" "There's been a leak," Varric said. "Someone told the people what the princess is." Ethan stood quickly. What do you mean, told the people? How bad is it? Bad enough that mobs are gathering outside the palace gates. The council is fueling it. Ethan's stomach dropped. They're going to come for her. Varric nodded grimly. And maybe for you. In the throne room, Queen Seraphina watched live feeds flickering across the air. Angry citizens, burning banners, crowds chanting, "No half-blood on the throne." Each word stabbed her like a knife. Her advisor entered, panic in his voice. Majesty, the council has called for your resignation. They say the bloodline is broken. Seraphina turned slowly, her voice quiet but filled with steel. Then let them come. The advisor swallowed. They have soldiers, Majesty. Then I will have fire, she said coldly. Moments later, alarms blared through the palace. Ethan ran down the hall with Varric, the baby cradled tightly in his arms. Where are we going? Varric replied, to the escape chamber. The queen ordered it prepared for her daughter. But what about her? Ethan asked, breathing hard. She'll face them. You just protect the child. They turned a corner and stopped. 3 guards stood there, weapons raised. Varric froze. Stand down! He shouted, but the guards didn't move. Their leader sneered. The council has taken control, Commander. The queen is finished, and so is that abomination you're protecting. Ethan's heart pounded. He stepped in front of the baby. Over my dead body, the guard smiled. Gladly. Before he could fire, a blast of golden light struck him from behind, vaporizing him instantly. The queen stepped out of the smoke, eyes blazing. You dare raise a weapon in my palace? The remaining guards dropped to their knees. Seraphina looked at Ethan. Go, take her. I'll hold them off. Ethan shook his head. No, you'll die, she smiled sadly. Better me than her. He looked at her, this proud alien queen with tears in her eyes, and something inside him broke. You're not alone, he said. Not anymore. She stared at him for a long second, then nodded. Then fight with me. Outside, explosions rocked the sky as the people of Xyrath turned against their ruler. But inside the palace, a human janitor, a desperate queen, and a fragile baby prepared to stand against a world that wanted them erased. The palace of Xyrath burned, bright towers that once touched the clouds now cracked with fire and smoke. The air trembled with the sound of explosions, the cries of soldiers and the roar of rebellion. Outside the gates, thousands of voices screamed the same words, "No half-blood ruler." Inside, one man held the only thing that mattered, a small baby with silver skin and lavender eyes, the future of a dying throne. Ethan ran through the palace corridors, clutching the infant to his chest. Alarms blared. The floor shook beneath him. His lungs burned, but he didn't stop. Hang on, little one, he whispered. I promised your mother I'd keep you safe. Behind him, Commander Varric fought off rebel guards with his plasma staff, his armor dented and smoking. Go, Ethan, he shouted. The queen's holding the main gate and she's buying you time. Ethan hesitated, looking back. She won't last alone. Varric blocked another strike and yelled, Then make her fight worth something. Ethan turned and ran again, his heart pounding with fear and rage. In the throne room, Queen Seraphina stood tall amid chaos. Her golden eyes glowed with fire as she faced the traitorous council guards. Her robe was torn, her crown cracked, but her voice was pure steel. You think you can destroy my bloodline, my child? She shouted. You will kneel before the future you tried to erase. With a wave of her hand, energy burst from her palms, a pure royal power, throwing back the rebels like leaves in a storm. But there were too many. For every guard she defeated, 2 more came. The council had planned this too well. Then, from behind the flames, the old counselor appeared, the same one who had accused her before. His voice echoed through the hall. You cannot hide the truth, Seraphina. Your reign is over. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. Maybe. But she will live. Ethan reached the lower chambers, a hidden escape bay built beneath the palace. The walls glowed faintly blue and a small transport pod waited at the far end. He placed the baby inside a clear stasis cradle, checking the oxygen level, the warmth, the pressure. You're safe now, he whispered. I just have to get you off this planet. But the control panel blinked red, launch locked. No. Come on, he muttered, typing uselessly at the alien keys. Then a voice came from the shadows. Step away from the cradle, Ethan turned. A soldier stood there, one of the council's men, weapon pointed straight at the baby. You're the human, the soldier sneered. The Queen's pet. Give her up, Ethan stood firm. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. The soldier fired. The blast hit the wall beside Ethan, throwing sparks. He dove to the floor, rolled and grabbed a metal pipe from the ground. Another shot scorched past his head. Ethan swung the pipe and it hit the soldier's arm, the weapon flying away. They struggled, slamming against the walls. The soldier was stronger, faster, but Ethan fought like a father who had nothing left to lose. Finally, with a desperate roar, he struck the soldier across the chest. The alien fell motionless. Ethan dropped the pipe, panting hard. That's for every kid who just wanted to live, he muttered. He turned back to the console, wiped blood from his face, and slammed his hand against the emergency override. The system beeped. Launch sequence 30 seconds. The pod's engines began to glow. Ethan smiled weakly at the baby. You're going somewhere safe, okay? Somewhere they can't find you. But then behind him, a soft voice said, No, she's not going without me. He turned. Queen Seraphina stood there, her armor cracked, her crown gone, her face streaked with soot. But her eyes were still fierce. Your Majesty, he gasped. You have to go with her. She shook her head. I can't leave. If I run, they'll follow. I must stay and end this. Ethan stepped closer. You'll die if you stay. I already gave my life when she was born, she said softly. But you gave her hope. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Ethan, promise me. Protect her. As you protected your own. He swallowed hard. I will, I swear. She smiled faintly. Then go. Tell her one day that her mother loved her enough to burn a kingdom for her. Before he could speak again, she pushed the launch button herself. The pod's doors closed. Through the glass, Ethan saw her standing tall. Flames behind her. Defiance in her eyes. The pod rose, engines roaring, and then shot into the night sky like a falling star in reverse. As the ship broke through the clouds, the palace below exploded in a brilliant burst of gold and white. Ethan held the baby close as the pod flew into space. She stirred, her tiny hand gripping his finger. He whispered through tears, You're safe now, Lyra, I promise. Below, Zirath burned. But above the stars, a new light began, the light of a fragile peace, born from the courage of a human father and an alien queen. Years later, on a quiet human colony, a small girl with silver skin and lavender eyes ran through the fields laughing. Daddy, look, I can breathe the air, she shouted. Ethan smiled, watching her. Yeah, you can. You really can. He looked up at the sky, two distant stars shining together. For a moment he thought he saw her, the queen, standing in that light watching them both. He whispered, She made it worth it, Your Majesty. You'd be proud. And somewhere among the stars, the Queen of Zirath's voice seemed to echo softly. Protect her, human. She will build a world where no one ever fears to breathe again.